Emily Parker woke before the sun because rent was due again, and the fridge was nearly empty, so every minute felt important. She tiptoed across the small apartment floor, careful not to wake 7-year-old Sam, who dreamed of dragons and homework victories. The worn kitchen clock ticked loudly as she scrambled 2 eggs, whispering a promise that tomorrow there would be more on the plate. Emily's phone buzzed with a reminder about an interview for a Maid job at Brightstone Enterprises, a towering company she had only seen on billboards. She had ironed her best blouse the night before, smoothing its sleeves again and again until the fabric felt like courage in her hands. The listing promised steady hours, health insurance, and respect, 3 treasures Emily longed to offer her son, who still needed asthma medicine each month. She wrote a lunch note for Sam in big blue letters, telling him to smile, try hard, and trust that good things grow from small seeds. Mrs. Patel, the kind neighbor with silver hair, had agreed to watch Sam after school, and Emily placed a thank-you chocolate bar on her welcome mat. Outside, the streetlights faded as sunrise melted pink across the city skyline, making broken pavement shimmer like secret gold. Emily clutched her thrift store purse, breathed chilly air that smelled of bread from the corner bakery, and hoped today could change everything. The first bus arrived late, its seats crowded with workers in bright vests, and Emily squeezed in beside a sleepy painter, humming a cheerful tune. She studied the company address on a printout, repeating it quietly like a spell to keep confusion away when bus routes tangled. Sam's small drawing of a smiling superhero peeked for her purse pocket, reminding her why quitting was never an option. 2 transfers later, the final bus rolled past glass towers, each wall reflecting morning light like enormous mirrors of ambition. Emily pressed the stop button when the driver called Riverfront Avenue, her stomach fluttering as if she were beginning a roller coaster ride. She stepped onto marble stairs in front of Brightstone's lobby, dwarfed by polished columns that resembled storybook castles from Sam's bedtime tales. A friendly security guard scanned her visitor pass and pointed toward elevators guarded by green plants taller than Emily. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and carpet inside felt softer than her own pillow at home, making her almost laugh. Mirrors lined the walls, showing Emily her reflection again and again, a determined woman wearing scuffed shoes but quiet hope. She inhaled slowly, straightened her shoulders, and pressed the button for the 30th floor where the housekeeping office waited. The elevator climbed, and numbers above the door glowed brighter, counting upward like encouragement instead of time. Emily recalled her late mother's words that kindness can open doors money cannot, so she vowed to smile at everyone today. The doors opened to a hallway bathed in warm light, its walls covered with photos of ocean cleanup crews funded by the company. She saw her appointment time glow on a digital screen beside plush chairs and bowls of peppermints nestled like tiny treasures. Nervous energy made her sit on the edge of a chair, hands folded, while she rehearsed answers about punctuality, honesty, and hard work. A receptionist with a sunflower pin greeted her, offering water and a compliment on Emily's neatly braided hair. Emily thanked her, feeling a burst of confidence blossom inside like sunshine slipping through storm clouds. She watched business people rush by, their shoes clicking like fast drum beats as they traded news of mergers and marketing. For a moment she feared she did not belong in such a bright place, but Sam's hero note reminded her that bravery belongs everywhere. The office door opened, and a tall woman named Ms. Grant, dressed in navy blue, invited Emily inside for the interview. Emily followed, noticing shelves of neatly labeled supplies, rows of uniforms pressed crisp, and a whiteboard listing daily cleaning zones. Ms. Grant's voice was calm as she asked Emily to describe past jobs, and Emily spoke of hotel rooms scrubbed after midnight shifts and diners mopped at dawn. She explained how she once sewed a torn curtain rather than trash it, because saving money felt like part of her duty. Ms. Grant listened, scribbling notes, eyebrows lifting when Emily mentioned leading volunteers to repaint Sam's school cafeteria. At last Ms. Grant smiled and said Emily's references were excellent, but the final decision would come from someone else later. Emily thanked her, though her heartbeat drummed like Sam's toy soldier parade. She returned to the lobby, choosing a seat where sunlight painted glowing rectangles on the carpet. Outside, gulls swooped over the river, and ferries cut through water that sparkled like silver scales. Emily whispered a tiny prayer that the window's shining path might guide good fortune toward her and her child. She did not yet know that destiny was walking down the hall, wearing polished shoes and carrying a surprising question. Emily looked up, surprised to see the man from the hallway offering a gentle smile, and she thought he resembled the heroes in Sam's picture books who always save the day. He introduced himself as William Grant, but asked her to simply call him Will, explaining that he owned Brightstone yet preferred plain speech over fancy titles because actions show true worth best. Emily's breath caught. She had just met the company's CEO, and she worried her scuffed shoes might mark the polished tiles, reminders of nights cleaning diners while Sam slept. Will saw her glance downward and said shiny floors meant nothing next to shiny hearts, a phrase that soothed her doubts and wrapped her worry in quiet calm. He asked whether she had finished her interview, and when she nodded, he invited her for tea in the executive lounge because he liked greeting every new team member, no matter their role. Emily followed him through glass doors into a room lined with tall windows over the river, where sunlight scattered like coins in the water and sailboats drifted slowly across gentle waves. A friendly attendant poured mint tea, and the gentle smell loosened the worry knots in Emily's shoulders after a morning of buses and budget numbers that squeezed like tight shoes. Will asked about her son, and Emily spoke with pride about Sam's rocket drawings and his dream of becoming an engineer who built bridges to unite cities. He listened carefully, mentioning scholarships for employee families, and hope bloomed like a flower pushing through spring snow, a promise that education would not be a locked door for Sam but an open gate to bright tomorrows. Will said he, too, had been raised by a single mother who sewed uniforms at night, so he understood the quiet weight Emily carried, turning their shared past into a bridge strong enough to carry new hopes. Emily's eyes widened. Few bosses spoke so openly, and she realized empathy could shine brighter than any skyscraper catching dawn's first light. Will admitted he had read her application that morning and loved her volunteer work repainting the school cafeteria, a project that reminded him of his mother's spirit. He explained that Brightstone needed people who protected small things like curtains, lunches, and morale, because those details knit a community tighter than any slogan. Emily felt tears threaten but blinked them back, yet Will passed her a linen napkin, proving kindness can fit inside the smallest gesture, and the tension she carried slipped out like escaping steam. He asked what her biggest dream would be if food, rent, and medicine no longer weighed on every sunrise, and if fear never again stood guard at the edge of her thoughts every single day. Emily answered that she would study at night for a degree in hospitality, guiding others with fairness and kindness, lanterns she hoped to pass along once her own path lit. Will nodded, saying leadership rooted in service was rare, and Emily's cheeks warmed at being called a natural leader for the first time. He paused and said there was an alternative to the housekeeping role that had brought her here, one that might seem unbelievable yet sincere, like the surprise twist in a favorite chapter book. Emily braced for rejection, but Will explained he sought a partner who understood honest work and genuine care, qualities she had shown in 20 minutes, the sort of care that money could never fake. He clarified he meant partner in life, not just business, because success felt empty without shared purpose and laughs around a kitchen table, the kind of simple music that makes walls feel wider and ceilings higher. Emily nearly spilled her tea, trying to grasp the switch from interview to proposal, her heart pounding like festival drums in a summer parade. Will apologized if his words felt rushed, promising her time to think, consult loved ones, and set boundaries that protected her independence, letting silence settle like fresh snow before big decisions. He said fairy tales skip hard details, so he preferred transparent agreements that turn magic into steady reality, because happily ever after grows best when planted in clear soil and tended with steady hands. Emily laughed shakily, thanking him for honesty while admitting she had never imagined such a question on a thrift store shoe day, and she wondered if luck sometimes wears simple shoes so it can run faster. Will smiled and said journeys often begin in humble footwear, then slid his business card across the table with every number circled in blue ink, inviting her to test every digit without hesitation. He suggested a tour of the daycare and wellness center so Emily could judge how Brightstone treated families, showing rather than telling the true Brightstone way. She agreed, and they walked past murals painted by students, the colors reflecting in the polished floor like a river of promise, rippling outward like rings after a stone hits water. At the daycare, toddlers stacked blocks while caregivers sang counting songs, and Emily pictured Sam laughing there after school, each block clacking like a tiny drum of future dreams. Will introduced her to the head nurse, who described free checkups and asthma monitoring, easing Emily's worry like a cool hand on a fevered forehead. Back in the corridor, Will asked if Sam liked science museums, since the corporate box sat unused and could become their Saturday adventure, complete with popcorn, planetarium shows, and a behind-the-ropes look at fossils too fragile for regular visitors. Emily felt her world tilt toward a brighter horizon, though a small voice wondered if fairy tale offers might vanish at midnight, but another voice pointed out that midnight still lay hours away. Will sensed her concern and said all agreements would be plain language, with separate accounts and an option to walk away if joy ever faded, his tone gentle yet firm like a teacher reading rules. He stressed that partnership meant lifting each other, not trapping, and Emily's pulse slowed as she heard the respect she deserved like two hikers taking turns carrying the heavy water pack. A chime announced lunchtime, and employees filled a cafeteria that served produce from the rooftop garden. Windows opened to let basil fragrance ride the warm air all the way to the ceiling. At a sunlit table, Emily watched workers greet custodians and executives alike, proof that company values fill the hallways. Conversation sounded like a friendly orchestra tuning up before the main song. She remembered nights scrubbing floors where no manager knew her name, and the contrast felt like stepping from shadow into bright plaza music. The plaza she pictured was lined with friendly vendor carts. Will said he had built this culture, but felt incomplete without someone who reminded him daily why kindness mattered more than profits. Kindness he measured like a gardener measures rainfall. Emily realized he viewed love and leadership as one woven effort, and the idea rang like a clear bell in her heart, a bell whose echo promised a steady rhythm of trust. Still, she asked for time to talk with Sam, and Will nodded, promising patience as wide as the river outside the window, patience she found as rare and refreshing as spring rain. Outside, cool air brushed her cheeks while gulls circled, and Emily sensed the next choice could rewrite every chapter of her and Sam's life. She tucked the folder under her arm, whispered thank you to the sky, and walked toward the bus stop, mind racing yet calm, as if the city itself whispered, "You can do this." Emily arrived at Mrs. Patel's apartment just before sunset, clutching the bright stone folder like a warm loaf of bread, and Sam bounded to the door with green marker stains on his fingers. She hugged him tightly, breathing in the scent of crayons and peanut butter, telling herself that every big decision must first pass the test of this small boy's steady, trusting eyes. Over tea in Mrs. Patel's kitchen, she explained the strange afternoon, while Sam's eyebrows rose higher than the steam from his cocoa with each amazing detail. Mrs. Patel listened quietly, finally patting Emily's hand and saying that sometimes life slides open hidden doors, but only the dreamer decides whether to walk through. Sam interrupted, asking if a CEO was a king of buildings, and whether kings allowed dragons on rooftops, a question that made their host laugh and eased Emily's trembling stomach. Emily answered that a CEO was more like a gardener who chose what seeds to plant in an enormous yard, and dragons were welcome if they remembered to share the sky. Sam declared that sharing skies sounded fair, then asked if his inhaler would fit in the rooftop garden, prompting Emily to promise yes, every breath would have space under that wide blue. Back home, mother and son sat cross-legged on the rug among overdue bills, math homework, and the folder whose crisp edges nudged Emily like an insistent finger. Sam connected colored pencils into a pretend microphone and announced an interview, asking Emily how it felt to be invited into a fairy tale while still wearing her everyday sneakers. She answered honestly that fairy tales carried extra chapters about hard choices, and sneakers could walk away whenever the story bent in a direction that no longer felt true to them. Sam nodded, then asked whether saying yes meant losing his favorite tree at school, because friends sometimes hide in branches waiting for after-class jokes. Emily opened the packet again, noting that Brightstone offered a bus pass program and tutoring center, so Sam could keep his tree and still ride to bigger adventures when ready. They made a worry list on notebook paper, from what if Will hates pancakes to what if meetings steal cartoons, because naming fears shrinks them like ice and sun. Emily promised each worry would be answered before any signature, and if one remained, they would decline, because safety matters more than shiny halls. Sam traced a rocket beside the list, labeling it Plan B, and Emily smiled at his certainty that backup plans travel faster when drawn with bright red fins and hopeful smoke. Night deepened, painting their window navy blue. Yet no one felt sleepy, so Emily dialed Will, voice steady but soft, asking for a breakfast meeting with Sam present. Will agreed, suggesting the Riverside Cafe at 8, promising warm waffles, honest answers, and no pressure like neighbors chatting at a yard sale table. Emily thanked him, noticing relief flutter inside like a small moth freed from a jar, and she marked the time on Sam's superhero calendar with a big blue star. Morning arrived wrapped in gentle spring rain, drumming a rhythm on the roof that sounded like applause for brave hearts, and Emily dressed Sam in his tedious shirt and bright sneakers. They caught an early bus, sharing an umbrella with cartoon planets, and Sam practiced greetings aloud, though he kept adding Your Majesty, before remembering Will preferred simple names. The cafe smelled of cinnamon and fresh paint, walls covered with photos of river cleanups and kids planting seedlings, reminders that kindness can be framed like daily art. Will waved from a corner booth, wearing a casual sweater instead of a suit, a choice that melted some of Emily's remaining anxiety like butter on warm toast. Sam shook Will's hand firmly, introducing himself as Chief Question Officer, a title that Maid will grin and salute, promising to answer every inquiry with the seriousness it deserved. Piping hot waffles arrived, and syrup rivers soon flowed across plates while conversation meandered through science museums, soccer leagues, and whether robots could learn table manners in the future. Will explained the proposed marital agreement in words Sam understood, describing separate savings accounts like twin treehouses connected by a rope bridge, safe on their own yet stronger together. He added that Emily's college tuition would be prepaid regardless of marriage, because investing in her goals felt like planting shade trees whose branches would shelter many others later on. Emily listened, heart thumping, grateful that promises were backed by signed scholarship vouchers already on the table, not merely glittering words floating beyond reach like distant fireworks. Sam asked if he could keep calling his mother Captain during homework time, and Will said captains steer ships best when sailors cheer them on, agreeing to cheer the loudest. The boy then asked what happened if storms came and the rope bridge snapped, and Will assured him that engineers inspect bridges regularly and rebuild stronger when winds test their knots. Emily realized her son was conducting the most thorough interview of her life, and she loved him even more for turning fear into practical engineering problems demanding smart blueprints. Breakfast lasted 2 joyful hours, ending with Sam's checklist receiving 23 check marks and 1 box left blank for Emily's private thoughts, which thrummed like quiet drums inside her chest. We'll walk them to the bus stop under a shared umbrella, promising no calls until Emily reached a clear decision, and he waved goodbye with the patience of a lighthouse. During the ride home, Sam leaned against her, eyes shining, whispering that kindness felt taller than skyscrapers and skyscrapers looked friendlier when kindness sat on the roof waving hello. Emily kissed the top of his head, amazed by his simple wisdom, and she watched raindrops race across the window, each drop tracing paths that split then joined again. Back in their apartment, Emily brewed chamomile tea and opened her old journal, writing pro and con lists in careful columns, weighing dreams against doubts like balancing marbles on a ruler. She phoned her sister in another city, recounting events while the teapot hissed, and her sister exclaimed that true partners show up with umbrellas, not thunder, reminding her to trust actions. Throughout the afternoon, neighborhood friends visited, bringing cupcakes and louder encouragement, marveling that a regular Tuesday could blossom into possibility as wide as the city river at high tide. Emily let every voice enter but saved final choice for her own steady heartbeat, because at day's end only she would walk the chosen road in her own 2 sneakers. Sunset painted orange stripes across peeling wallpaper, and she pictured 2 futures, one where struggle stayed constant yet familiar, and another where risk might carve a doorway into bright new rooms. She inhaled deeply, feeling courage settle like a stone in clear water, decided to meet Will tomorrow at the riverbank gazebo with her answer, and fell asleep knowing her pen was finally steady. Emily woke before dawn, her heart steady because she carried an answer as clear as the sunrise pouring orange light across their small kitchen window. She packed Sam's lunch with a victory sticker on the sandwich bag, telling him that brave choices taste sweeter when shared, and he grinned wide enough to brighten the dim hallway outside. With sneakers tied tight, they rode the early bus to Riverside Park where mist climbed from the river and pigeons strutted along the path hunting crumbs from joggers. Will waited by the wooden gazebo, holding 3 paper cups of steaming cocoa, and waved so eagerly that even the pigeons bowed before flapping away in respectful silence. Sam ran ahead, greeted Will with a deep bow worthy of cartoon royalty, then declared the meeting open, producing a plastic whistle he blew once to make the morning feel official and fun. Emily took the warm cup, wrapped her fingers around it, and told Will she had 3 conditions before accepting, because clear rules keep storms away. First, she wanted her hospitality classes to be her own work, with no shortcuts, since victories feel best when earned by honest sweat and late-night study. Second, Sam would keep his favorite tree and friends at his current school until the year finished, so roots would not be ripped up faster than young confidence can grow back. Third, she insisted on a trial year during which either could step away kindly if happiness shrank, promising that love built on choice beats any castle built only on big promises. Will listen without interrupting, nodding after each point as though ticking boxes in his mind, then placed a folder on the bench showing every condition already typed, signed, and dated. Sam inspected the papers like a detective with finger-made magnifying glass, announcing that the commas were correct, and the ink smelled trustworthy, stirring laughter. Emily felt pressure lift from her shoulders, floating away like a balloon escaping a child's grip, and she realized relief sometimes arrives disguised as neat paragraphs on crisp paper. She handed the folder back, whispered yes, and Will's answering smile looked like sunlight breaking through thick clouds after a week of rain that kept everyone inside longing for blue sky. Will slipped a simple silver ring from his pocket, asking Sam to guard it until the official moment, a task the boy accepted with knightly seriousness. The three of them walked along the river's edge while ducks quacked greetings, and they talked about waffles, homework, and whether kindness could be measured in gallons like milk. At Brightstone headquarters later that morning, Ms. Grant greeted Emily with a cheer loud enough to echo down the corridor, handing her a new badge that read Community Care Coordinator. The title sounded grand, yet Emily liked it because its first job was listening, then fixing small problems before they grew claws, just like she had done for years without a fancy label. An orientation video played in a sunlit room, showing recycling robots dancing and employees reading books to shelter dogs, and Emily smiled, thinking the company actually walked the talk printed on posters. During lunch, Will introduced her to the board members, explaining she would help guide projects that supported families, and he bragged about her curtain sewing story until her cheeks turned warm pink. They toasted with lemonade instead of champagne so Sam could join, and every sparkling bubble felt like a tiny bell ringing approval inside the tall glasses clinking together. That afternoon, Emily signed enrollment forms for evening hospitality classes, choosing the hardest electives because she wanted her new life to stretch her mind like a fresh rubber band. She toured the on-site daycare again, this time noticing a reading nook shaped like a rocket ship, and she imagined Sam curled there after school, flying through pages toward distant galaxies. In the company clinic, she met Nurse Alvarez, who programmed Sam's inhaler alerts into the system and promised text reminders, which felt like a safety net woven from careful lines of code. The day ended with a surprise party in the cafeteria where coworkers presented Emily with a welcome cake shaped like the river, complete with candy ducks and a tiny gazebo made of sugar sticks. Sam performed a short dance he called the Celebration Shuffle, earning loud applause and a job offer from the entertainment committee, which he politely postponed until homework season ended. Walking home, Emily saw their neighborhood differently, as if fresh paint coated every door frame, because perspective sometimes changes reality faster than any bucket of real paint can. She stopped by Mrs. Patel's apartment to share slices of river cake, and the older woman blessed the young couple with words that floated like rose petals on calm water. In their living room later, Emily wrote a new budget plan labeled Step Forward, noticing the columns finally balanced without scary red numbers glaring at the bottom row. She and Sam taped the ring box to the fridge as motivation, promising not to open it until the ceremony, the same way astronauts seal experiments before launch day. Evening breeze carried city sounds through the window, and mother and son stood on the fire escape counting lights on bridges, inventing stories for people walking below. Sam asked why grown-ups fear change when adventure books prove that leaving home starts every best quest, and Emily confessed she sometimes forgot to be brave when bills whispered louder than dreams. He answered that she could borrow his courage anytime, then stuck a superhero sticker on her jacket to prove courage is transferable, like trading cards among friends. Inside, Emily recorded a voice message to Will, thanking him and promising she would keep her own bank account and opinions, because partners respect separate wings on the same bird. Will replied with a laughing emoji followed by the words "deal accepted," reminding her that love can speak through tiny icons as well as spoken vows. Before bed, Sam drew the river, gazebo, and silver ring guard badge, labeling the picture Chapter 1, confident many chapters waited beyond the page. Emily tucked him in, realizing the apartment felt warmer even though the heater was unchanged, because hope often works better than blankets at chasing cold corners away. She opened her journal, writing, "Today I learned that choosing is power, and power is gentle when shared," finishing the sentence with 3 stars because 2 stars felt too small. Moonlight slid across the floor like a silent cat, and Emily carried her college textbooks to the table, eager to read chapter titles that once seemed impossible for someone always tired from double shifts. She studied until eyelids begged for rest, then set an alarm titled "Build Tomorrow," and its cheerful ringtone promised to greet her before the sun, just as determination had done all week. While she slept, rain returned in soft whispers, tapping Morse code encouragement against the window, and the final drip glittered on the ring box, guarding the future until morning brought toast and new beginnings. Emily's first 3 months as community care coordinator flew by like bright kites on windy spring days, each week lifting higher as she learned names, noted needs, and found small ways to sprinkle solutions. She greeted cafeteria servers, maintenance techs, lawyers, and lab engineers every morning, carrying a notebook covered in stickers Sam chose, and she wrote ideas beside doodles of rockets and smiley suns. We'll encourage her to test her plans fast, so she launched a kindness mailbox on every floor where workers dropped notes thanking colleagues, and she read them aloud during Friday lunch so praise rang like music. Sam loved visiting after school, leading tours for his classmates while Emily explained recycling robots, and the kids giggled when the bots bowed politely after sorting apple cores and plastic bottles. One afternoon, Emily discovered an empty break room corner and transformed it into a tiny library using leftover boards, paint in company colors, and donated books that now traveled from desk to home like friendly birds. She added a sign that said, "Take a story, leave a story," and noticed shy interns trading comic books for cookbooks, realizing words feed many hungers beyond lunchtime sandwiches. Every success built her confidence, and evening hospitality classes felt easier because daily practice showed theories in action, turning textbooks into mirrors of her own experience. Meanwhile, Will respected the trial year boundaries, sending encouraging messages but never steering her decisions, giving their growing relationship space like gardeners spacing seeds for healthy roots. On weekends they met at public places Sam loved, science fairs, river festivals, open-air movies, and Emily appreciated how Will joined bounce house lines or cotton candy spills without complaint. Rumors of the CEO's low-key outings with a single mom appeared in gossip blogs, yet Will simply shrugged, saying truth stays calm while rumors run circles until they tire themselves out. Emily used those moments to teach Sam that fame can be noisy but character speaks in a quiet, steady tone, much like neighbor Mrs. Patel, whose gentle waves meant more than any autograph. Midsummer brought Brightstone's annual Family Fun Day, and Emily organized a giant gratitude mural where employees painted handprints shaped into a river flowing across a canvas as long as a school bus. Sam dipped both hands in blue paint, pressed them near the center, and wrote, "Thanks for healthier air to breathe," honoring both his asthma relief and the rooftop gardens filtering city smog. Will placed his handprints beside Sam's and added, "Thanks to those who keep promises," causing Emily's eyes to shine though. She blinked fast so no one teased her about happy tears. Later that day, Emily led a scavenger hunt with clues hidden in team-building riddles, and security guards joined interns to solve puzzles, proving titles disappear when curiosity takes the wheel. At dusk, fireworks blossomed over the river, and Emily stood between Sam and Will feeling safe, amazed that 3 months earlier her biggest wish had been groceries and rent paid on time. Back at home, she updated her journal, noting the budget still balanced and an emergency fund finally sprouted, a tiny green seedling in the soil of their future. She paid off Sam's old medical bill, then surprised herself by buying 2 second-hand bicycles so they could ride evening paths instead of only dreaming past handlebars and store windows. The trial year rules worked, and Will often reminded her that she could change her mind anytime. His respect felt like a soft blanket she could wrap around choices on colder days. One Friday, Emily joined a midnight cleaning crew by choice, scrubbing floors beside them because leaders should understand elbow grease, and she left thank you notes taped to every supply cart. The crew posted selfies with her messages online, captions reading, "Our boss's boss mopped with us," and shares exploded, inspiring other departments to request shadow shifts for directors. Emily's professor later shared the article in class, not knowing she was the subject, and she listened quietly while classmates praised the anonymous coordinator's servant leadership style. After lecture, Emily revealed the secret, earning high fives and a reminder that humility travels farther than bragging, like a paper airplane catching warm currents. Autumn leaves finally tinged the river walkway gold, and Sam collected the biggest ones to press in his notebook labeled Evidence of Seasons, saying change can be cataloged like science. Will join their Saturday leaf hunt wearing a hoodie instead of a suit, blending in with joggers, and he taught Sam to skip flat stones so far they seemed to hop into tomorrow. That evening, Emily cooked vegetable soup with rooftop garden produce, and they ate on the fire escape under string lights while city horns softened into distant lullabies. Sam asked if they could invite Mrs. Patel next time, because kindness tastes better when more people share, and Emily agreed, drafting a polite note on the last slice of bread. During October budget review, Emily discovered Brightstone saved money due to her energy timer suggestions, and the board voted to invest the savings in school partnerships she designed. She presented the plan wearing the same thrift store blouse from her interview, choosing it as a lucky charm and proof that value doesn't live in price tags but in persistence. Board members applauded, approving scholarships for train route schools so kids like young Will or Emily could reach bigger dreams without bus transfer headaches. Nurse Alvarez later reported asthma incidents down by 20% because campus air filters now ran longer, and Sam celebrated by drawing lungs shaped like superhero shields. Emily framed a picture on her office wall, hanging it near the kindness mailbox so visitors saw reasons behind every program before dropping their thank you notes. Though life sparkled, challenges still arrived: a burst pipe, a last-minute presentation, and one negative headline twisting their story. Yet each problem became a lesson rather than a wall. Emily repeated her mother's mantra: count to 10, ask for help, choose the next right step, and she taught it to Sam, who practiced by solving math puzzles one careful line at a time. One chilly night, power flickered, and we drove across town with lanterns and extra blankets, leaving immediately after ensuring they were safe, respecting boundaries even in storms. Emily realized love sometimes looks like batteries delivered at 1 a.m., and she wrote that thought beside a doodle of a flashlight shining the word trust on a brick wall. Near the end of the trial year's first half, Emily's college midterms loomed like tall waves, but study sessions at the library cafe with Coco kept nerves steady. Sam quizzed her using flashcards, cheering when she aced hospitality law, and librarians smiled at the unusual role reversal where the child coached the adult. Grades returned, 3 A's and 1 solid B, and Will celebrated by gifting her a tiny potted oak sapling, saying education grows branches nobody can cut down. Emily planted it on the rooftop garden at sunrise, hands dirty but heart clear, promising to water it weekly and watch the seasons carve rings of growth inside the trunk. Emily awoke on the first snowy morning of January, hearing the wind rattle the window like a drum, and she realized the trial year had quietly crossed its halfway mark during the night. The sky blushed pink, promising adventure. She brewed cocoa, opened her notebook, and listed every gain: the emergency fund, the library corner, the asthma alerts, then underlined the word courage with a bright orange marker. Sam burst from his room wearing 2 different socks in celebration of Silly Day at school, waving a permission slip for the Winter Science Fair tomorrow evening at Brightstone. Clouds drifted like sheep, cheering mismatched socks. At work, Emily organized a coat drive, stacking colorful jackets into towers taller than herself, and she smiled knowing each zipper would soon shield a neighbor from the frosty air. She imagined each coat hugging someone in quiet warmth. Will supported the project from a distance, sending anonymous matching funds that doubled the number of coats but never stealing the spotlight from the volunteers. During faculty break, she studied hospitality finance, counting imaginary guests and receipts, until numbers felt less like hurdles and more like stepping stones across a clear creek. Numbers now lined up like friendly soldiers on parade. That weekend, Will invited Emily and Sam to the public skating rink downtown, and they glided in shaky circles under strings of colored lights that blinked red and blue, painting spinning circles onto the glossy ice. Sam slipped twice, but Will steadied him with patient hands, teaching the boy to bend his knees and laugh at gravity instead of fearing it, tiny snowflakes melting into fresh giggles. Emily found herself laughing too, sending white breath clouds into the winter sky, and in that moment shared joy felt sturdier than any contract. She wondered if shared joy might be the warmest scarf in the world, wrapping all 3 in invisible, unbreakable fabric. February arrived with a surprise email. Emily's kindness mailbox idea earned Brightstone a National Community Award, complete with a ceremony in Washington, D.C. Board members offered to attend, yet Emily insisted the maintenance crew and cafeteria staff join her because their notes filled the mailbox first. She practiced a short acceptance speech Sam helped write, including a joke about recycling applause into more applause. Flashes snapped, yet her heartbeat sounded louder. On stage, she thanked every unseen worker who keeps hallways bright, and the audience rose to their feet, clapping until her cheeks glowed hotter than the spotlight. News outlets cover the moment, but Emily's favorite headline came from the school paper: Sam's mom wins prize for spreading nice words everywhere. Back home, Mrs. Patel baked cardamom cookies, and neighbors taped paper hearts on Emily's door. The cookies tasted of warmth and old stories, blending sweetness and spice in perfect, unforgettable ratio. Midterm grades returned with straight A's, and Professor Lee urged Emily to apply for an accelerated track. Ice floes cracked softly as sunbeams stretched, showing frozen things thaw with time. Spring thaw melted river ice into glittering sheets, and with them drifted most of Emily's remaining worries about stepping fully into the future. One Saturday, Will, respecting tradition, knelt on the gazebo steps and asked again for marriage, pledging to keep learning how to listen. Always, his voice trembled from the depth of meaning packed into each word. Emily said yes before Sam, Mrs. Patel, and half of Riverside Park, Sam, had secretly texted invitations. Her yes flew into the sky like a bright kite. They circled the summer date and glitter-pinned fireworks. Preparations began at once, yet Emily refused lavish plans, choosing a modest garden ceremony set for late June, exactly 1 year after her first interview. She pinned invitations on recycled paper embedded with wildflower seeds so guests could plant the memory afterward, turning celebration into blossoms. Sam designed the program booklet, adding cartoon rockets beside each event heading in bold crayon so no one could miss the important parts. At Brightstone, employees volunteered shifts so Emily could finish finals without overtime stress, and she repaid them with homemade granola bars labeled Fuel for Champions. The bars disappeared quickly, fueling laughter and brainstorming that stretched late into night. During her last exam, she wrote answers quickly, pausing only to draw a small star on each page, permanent reminder to shine. Pride lifted her shoulders higher than the stage itself, and she felt lighter than a balloon on a summer breeze. Graduation day dawned sky blue and clear. Will clapped loudest when Emily crossed the stage in a borrowed cap, holding her diploma like a lantern. In the audience, Sam waved a sign reading, "Go Captain Mom." While Mrs. Patel snapped photos, Emily whispered a hope that both flowers and stories would sprout from their rooftop soil. The next week, she planted the wildflower invitations in Brightstone's garden. Morning sunlight made each chair for the ceremony sparkle like polished stones. Nurse Alvarez prepared Sam's inhaler for the big day, though it stayed unused, an umbrella on a perfect day. Mrs. Patel rehearsed her roles sprinkling rose petals and warned Will to keep promises or face her trusty rolling pin, drawing laughter from all. The ceremony was short, but every word felt tall. Kindness, respect, laughter, and even pigeons seemed to nod before fluttering skyward. The applause startled a flock nearby, their wings turning into white confetti, as if nature had planned its own celebration. When Sam presented the silver ring he had guarded for months, Will knelt and let the child slide it into place. Sam's grin seemed to cast its own sunlight, brighter than the setting sun. Over picnic tables, they served vegetable soup and lemonade, proving celebration can taste like ordinary meals cooked with extra gratitude. Steam curled upward like soft exclamation points. At dusk, they released candlelit paper boats reading "Share Skies Always," and wishes glided over ripples, reflecting starlight like tiny silver fish. Fireflies blinked around them, and children chased the lights, turning the park into a living snow globe of golden sparks. Late that night, the trio returned to their apartment, temporary until they chose a new home, because choice remained their strongest habit, a story setting waiting to be written. Emily hung her diploma beside Sam's pressed leaves, forming a timeline drawn by two hands holding the same pencil. Before sleep, she journaled, "Love grows in open air, work sings louder with purpose, and trials are test drives for trust." She promised to remember even when years sped by. She set an alarm labeled "First Day of Forever," selecting a birdsong ringtone mixed with gentle drums. Outside, the oak sapling on Brightstone's roof rustled, and somewhere nearby the river murmured agreement, while the city slept wrapped in the promise of their shared tomorrow. Emily closed her eyes, certain that morning would bring toast, textbooks for the next degree, and a horizon wide enough for every dream, new and old, to fly. 1 year after the snowy wedding, Emily woke to birdsong and warm sun, grateful that every sunrise still felt like a fresh slice of victory pie for her small family. Everyone in their small apartment still remembered the fear from old days, so this sweet peace felt doubly earned. She pulled on bright sneakers, kissed Will, and climbed to the roof where their oak sapling now rose above her shoulders, leaves fluttering like green flags of progress. Morning breeze carried the scent of rooftop tomatoes and distant bakery bread mixed together. The garden buzzed with bees and co-workers tending herbs, proving good ideas, like mint, spread when watered with steady care instead of loud speeches. The buzzing felt like a gentle choir saying "good job" without words. Downstairs, Sam hurried through breakfast because he would read his science fair essay to the mayor, cheeks glowing as red as strawberry jelly on toast. He practiced his bow in the mirror, imagining newspaper cameras flashing like tiny suns. Emily packed his inhaler, a rocket keychain, and a note that brave hearts ask for help when winds grow rough, just like boats use lighthouses. She tucked the note into his pocket near his heartbeat where bravery lives. They passed murals of the Gratitude River sealed in clear paint, and Sam pointed to his blue handprint, whispering that kindness can become concrete history. At Brightstone, Emily began her role as director of community bridges, which meant listening early and inviting every voice to the repair party before walls cracked. Her new badge caught sunlight, flashing like a tiny lighthouse whenever she turned. She met a teen intern hiding her sketchbook behind spreadsheets, so Emily set up a hallway art show that brightened the lobby and the intern's courage. Emails stacked like pancakes, yet Emily tackled them one syrupy layer at a time, reminding managers that slow reading prevents sticky mistakes later. She also brought donuts to keep spirits high and keyboards crumb-filled. By noon, she led a call with 4 rural schools joining the laptop loan plan, each principal waving like astronauts from distant starships. After lunch, she spoke at college classes, saying leadership is service in comfortable shoes, not a throne built from fancy buzzwords. She reminded them that kindness gets taller when everyone crouches to help. Students laughed when she showed her thrift store blouse and urged them to keep a humble token that reminds success where it came from. Back at her desk, a message flashed from Will. Sam won first prize for showing how recycled plastic can become playground slides instead of river trash. Will added that Sam's smile outshone any blue ribbon on the trophy case. Emily cheered so loudly Nurse Alvarez joined in, tossing confetti made from shredded memos, proving paperwork can turn to party supplies. The storm drummed on the windows, but Emily brewed tea for nervous interns, teaching her mother's rule. Count to 10, breathe, choose the next right step. Rain tapped Morse code messages of patience on the roof until nerves calmed. She drafted a budget to fix shelter roofs, adding umbrella doodles beside numbers because pictures help math smile. When the sky cleared, a rainbow arched over water, and Emily pasted its photo in her journal under good weather after work. She also glued a dried clover from Sam, calling it portable luck. Evening meant dinner at Mrs. Patel's new place, where cardamom cookies baked and the smell wrapped around them like a quilt sewn from stories. We'll wash dishes while Sam practiced the celebration shuffle, and Emily saw how chores shrink when laughter echoes between walls. They sang off-key cleaning songs that made nearby neighbors clap through walls. On the balcony, Mrs. Patel told tales of crossing oceans, proving courage travels farther than any ticket ever printed, and the tales included secret recipes for staying brave during long voyages. Sam asked how courage tastes, and she said cinnamon with a hint of fear, making everyone giggle and lick cookie crumbs to test the flavor. Sam later wrote the flavor down for a class report titled Bold Snacks. Later, Emily finished training slides in bright colors so every worker could follow without squinting. Large fonts meant even the janitor reading quickly between mops could follow. She titled the session Bridges Not Walls and planned a paper bridge race to show tape and teamwork beat solo towers. The race would end with a marshmallow weight test to prove strength. Will added a stick figure doodle of paper clips shaking hands, a joke that made the lesson even easier to remember. He slipped the doodle into her pocket so it traveled everywhere unseen. At bedtime, Sam wondered if their story would ever end, and Emily said some stories grow new chapters like tree rings each year. Emily knew tree rings record storms as well as sunshine, which matters. He labeled tomorrow page 1 of volume 2 and promised to post sticky note summaries on the fridge until space ran out. Lights off, Emily's mind glowed with plans. A citywide kindness mailbox network, a Mrs. Patel scholarship, and solar panels for the skating rink. Solar lights would let kids skate under stars even during power cuts. She counted blessings instead of sheep, reaching 40 before the radiator hissed goodnight, smiling at the symmetry. Dreams carried her to a ribbon cutting where taller Sam spoke about bridges of steel and human kindness. She pictured balloons, drums, and maybe a street band for the cutting, and she woke ready to build. Sunrise painted gold across oak leaves. Birds rehearsed songs, and Emily laced running shoes for another chance to serve. She jogged by the river greeting joggers, dogs, and curious raccoon. Because community includes every heartbeat and paw, the raccoon stared back sleepy-eyed, accepting her wave like a citizen. Reaching the gazebo, she tapped the rail, a habit like knocking on opportunity's door to say thanks for staying open. Back home, Sam's new notebook listed cloud shapes that looked like mashed potatoes, proving wonder survives even algebra quizzes. He glued a fallen leaf to the page as scientific evidence of autumn. Over breakfast, he asked if kindness ends. Emily said it loops like the river, returning richer with stories. Stories collected by the river could one day fill library shelves everywhere. At work, she launched Mystery Lunch, pairing employees who never talked, and the cafeteria buzzed with surprise friendships. Surprise desserts at tables helped shy eaters join the laughter sooner. A shy accountant found a comic book buddy in a bold designer, and their laughter floated down halls like trumpet notes. Even security guards peeked in, laughing so hard radio earpieces shook. By late afternoon, her inbox overflowed with smiling selfies tagged #NewBridges, and she shared them on a company blog. She planned a slideshow with captions so families at home could smile too. That night, Will toasted her with sparkling cider, saying the day held more bridges than a city map. Tomorrow's blueprint already filled 2 notebook pages with colored arrows. She wrote, "Success tastes like shared cookies, sounds like mixed laughter, and looks like doors that never close on polite knockers." She added 3 stars beside the line so it would shine later. Closing her journal, Emily listened to soft city sounds and felt sure their story had room for many volumes, flowing on like the endless river outside. The river answered with a soft hush, promising endless ink for future pages.